Now let's talk to the man, Harold the H. Peacock. He's going to tell us about some Ipswich histories. There's some royalty around Ipswich, and there's little things to remind us that we've had royalty here in Ipswich. G'day, Harold the H.
Yes. Yeah, good morning, Danny, and Damo the Ark.
Did you enjoy your Ipswich tour last week?
Yeah.
I did. There was so much history around the streets of Ipswich, and the tour guides of Lost Ipswich are fantastic. They really know their stuff.
That's
Jacko.
Well, Jacko, yeah. He was great.
Ex-Raffy. Jacko's an ex-Raffy, and he worked at another radio station I worked at over here, and he also worked at 4BC as a rep back in the day. And he loves the Ipswich Jets.
And he loves Ipswich too, because he's passionate about the history and sharing the stories. So it was really enjoyable. People should get out here and just walk the streets and just drink their coffee and all that kind of stuff. It's beautiful.
Well, they can knock Paul Pasali as much as they like, but that was one thing Paul was really pedantic about, is the heritage. And at the moment, the Ipswich Tribune, is that what you call it?
Tribune.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
On Wednesday, have a story with Paul down in the Dunny with Paul Tully. Down in the gully.
That's the one.
There's a house they want to knock down or move it, relocate it, called the Carroll House, and they want to move it to Rosewood. Thank God people like Paul, if it was down the Goldie, Tom Tate would say, well, just knock the coot down.
Yep, but the thing with that one, and I'm sure Harold will know this as well, that was the birthplace of the family who brought us Birch, Carroll and Coyle films.
Well, where do you find this stuff out, Mr. Google?
From Harold, because he's the expert.
Harold, tell us about...
It's fascinating. Well, I want to speak to Paul Tully and get out of that house and just metal detect around there to see what archaeology is left before they move anything or interrupt the archaeology that's there. Let's get out there and find that stuff about Birch, Carroll and Coyle.
Yeah.
Well, you might find an old cameraman down there.
Yeah, that's right. But today I want to tell you about the old royal history that's around Ipswich, because with the Queen's funeral happening on Monday in the UK, there's no reason why we should feel left out here in Ipswich or any town in Australia, because there are reminders of royal history all around us. And I'll tell you about a few of the more obscure ones. Now, there have been 10 royal visits to Ipswich. The first one was in 1868 with a visit of Prince Alfred, who was the second son of Queen Victoria.
Right.
Now, what was remarkable about that visit was the total pandemonium of the prince's arrival, when hundreds of Ipswich horsemen chased him along Brisbane Road and into town.
Wow.
But it's his mother, Queen Victoria, who can often be found here today.
Where?
For example, when I went to Browns Park in North Ipswich a while ago, and that was with one of our listeners, George. Hello, George. He's listening now.
Hello, George.
We found a pocket full of English coins that included the likeness of Queen Victoria herself. And you can find these things everywhere. And those coins came from not long after that first royal visit. We found pennies, threepences, sixpences from as early as 1873. And best of all were 2 florins from 1875 and 1890.
Florins?
Now they were found together, and they're a lot of money. 2 florins is 48 pennies and was a day's wages back then. Now, you'd expect that they were lost by someone in a big crowd, because you're not going to drop 2 florins real easily. And the biggest crowd in Browns Park was the Ipswich's biggest political rally ever, and that was in 1908, right where the florins were found. Now, that's when 1,500 people turned up to support A.J. Stevenson and Major Deakin in their quest for Parliament. Now, Stevenson had been the Mayor of Ipswich and would serve in both the Queensland Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council, and Major Deakin had been the second in command of the Queensland contingent to the Boer War and would be Mayor of Ipswich 3 times.
Wow.
But Browns Park itself is a reminder of royal history in another way.
Wow.
That's because controversy erupted in 1911 when a faction in council wanted to rename Browns Park to be King George V Park. That was in honour of the new king's coronation that year in 1911. But the 5-time mayor of Ipswich, Peter Brown, had originally named the park after himself.
Right.
Now, Major Deakin was one of those who opposed the name change, and so it stayed as Browns Park as it is today. Now, not far from Browns Park is 80 Ward End Road in Wood End.
I know it.
That's the Ipswich home with a royal connection, and you know, because you've probably gone there to have a look, Danny.
Yeah, I have.
You have, because that's where Fred Robinson lived, and he worked as a tool sharpener on the railways. But unknown to many was that back in England, he had actually been a valet and butler to royalty.
Get out.
He had, absolutely. And so when he was here in Queensland, he had to take leave from the railways because the government wanted to go be head butler for 3 royal visits in the 1920s and 30s, the Ipswich tool sharpener. One of those visits was by the Prince of Wales, who came to Ipswich in 1920. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, Prince of Wales was the future King Edward VIII, who, as you probably know, later abdicated.
Mm.
Now, a constant reminder of that royal history is, of course, the Prince of Wales Hotel, right there in Brisbane Street, across the road here from West Brisbane Radio Studios, in the main street of Ipswich. The name was actually changed in 1920 from the Union Hotel to the Prince of Wales in honour of that royal visit. And so it remains a direct connection to our new King Charles III, and his granduncle, who came here back then. So you see, Danny, there's royal history everywhere in Ipswich, and indeed every city and town in Australia. You could find these things everywhere. You just have a look. And so that should hopefully make us all feel closer to the Queen's funeral on Monday, as well as to the eventual coronation of King Charles next year.
You know, you are sensational, and I'm sick and tired of pleading with the Ipswich City Council to get your info and help you publish a book about this great city and its history, because you're incisive. Is that the word, Damien? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And you are entertaining, you're informative, and you get down in the... In fact, we should be calling Down in the Gully with Harold the H. Peacock.
Well, I'm not sure that doesn't have the same ring to it, but thanks very much, Danny. That's very kind things for you to say.
I sent you a screenshot of the Ipswich Tribune.
Yeah.
Tribune. With Paul on the front with a disgusted look on his face. And Carol, that's really interesting, you said, Damien, that it was Birch, Carroll and Coyle.
Yeah, well, it was their family home, the Carroll family.
1906. Oh, mate, get out there with your thing and poke it in the ground.
We have to get out there before the earth is disturbed and that history, that archaeology is lost forever.
Get the
once
big
it's gone, it's gone.
Well, Danny, you should get in touch, because you are very good friends with down in the gully with Paul Tully.
Paul Tully, yeah.
And you should tell him that Harold needs to get out there.
Harold, we'll sort it out, mate. Yeah. That's part of history. We're not getting rid of it, Harold. It's as simple as that.
Let's save it and keep it for everyone to see, so they know the history of Ipswich, the greatest town in Queensland.
Well, see, here on West Bremer Radio, we don't just talk about it. We are action men. We get it happening.
And, you know, the Carroll family became famous for the singing of hymns and songs at Christmas time with carols by candlelight.
I did not know that.
That's crap. That is absolute crap. It's not true. I made that up.
And Ernie Carroll was a direct descendant, and he started the first puppet shop in Melbourne.
and I think Carol Brady was named after the family, wasn't she?
Oh, fair dinkum. This is all garbage.
Yeah, Mike was a bit of a ring-in, though.
Now, look, it's 8:23. That was Harold the H. How do we read this thing? What do we...
Yeah, go to historyouthere.com. I'll upload the photos and the stories of this, so you can see the Royal Connection down in Ipswich. I'll upload that first thing in the morning. historyouthere.com.
Thanks a lot, Harold the H. Peacock, here on West Bremer Radio. It's 8:23.